Good morning, everyone. Thanks to Caris for inviting me to the 2022 Caris Global Network Week. My name is Jeffrey. I'm the Senior Education Specialist with ADB. Today, I would take the opportunity to share the ADB strategy for the future of education, especially in digital education. If you go to the presentation outline. So my presentation is broken into three sections. First, I will talk about the global catalyst that are driving change in the education sector. Next, I will highlight the digital education roadmap and the transformation of the sector. And last, I will share ADB's support for the education sector to help reimagine the education sector in our developing member countries. First, the global catalyst. As we know, there's really an urgency to respond to the learning and learning losses and the need to turn the COVID-19 crisis into an opportunity. This need to take a transformative approach to education reform. These reforms are driven largely by global catalysts, such as climate change, digitalization, and the pandemic that affects all levels of education, including school education, higher education, and technical and vocational education training, which is Tibet. So now, as we see the schools have been reopening, the main questions are, how will countries recover the learning losses, and how to ensure that the dropouts get back to school? And how to ensure that teachers are ready to support the learning recovery in the best possible ways. And especially, I think there's a really urgency to help the students who weren't able to learn literacy and numeracy skills during school closures, and those will face compounded learning and learning and learning losses when they grow up. Another mega trend is the climate change that is disrupting most industries and how we respond to sustainability. Climate change related disasters are already affecting 50% of the population in East Asia and the Pacific annually. Again, the most vulnerable groups are in the worst situation. Unfortunately, the education system, the readiness to address climate change is currently still very low. According to UNICEF, countries lack knowledge on how to integrate education to be more active in fighting climate change. Thus, education has been grossly under-tapped in prepare future leaders and the green workforce, as well as generating massive awareness and mindset change in facilitating green and just transition. Last but not least, as we know, the digitalization impacts all sectors and the future of jobs significantly. The World Economic Forum estimates that by 2045, 85 million jobs will be displaced due to automation and digitalization, while 97 million new jobs will emerge. At the same time, digitalization offers tremendous opportunities to improve the quality, scale, and affordability of education delivery. And that's where we're going to get to the next, is how do we capitalize the acceleration of education technology to digitize education delivery. Here we are breaking again into a three-step process. First, on why using education technology and looking at the key evidences where EdTech can improve learning efficacy. Second, rationalize the EdTech taxonomy, but focusing on the key solutions that are relevant for systematic and sustainable transformations. Last is really focus on how to assess the country's readiness, the gaps, and how to plan, prioritize, and implement the digital transformations. What we done in ADB is we simplified the landscape of the EdTech solutions into the following three categories. The first is teaching and learning. The second is administration and governance. The third is for employability. Focus on the teaching and learning. I think within the teaching and learning category, we further categorize into learning content solutions, learning activities solutions, and learning assessment solutions. These teaching and learning solutions directly contribute to the following benefits, starting from interactive learning everywhere, anywhere, anytime, with dynamic visualization, creative production and collaboration. At the same time, with the ability to automate guiding feedbacks in real time and provide learning analytics to teachers to enable adaptivity. So how do we start off the journey on to really use EdTech for successful implementation? So what we want to start off is look at the digitization of the education system, and we really gained valuable knowledge on what are the most significant factors affecting the digital transformation. What we have done is we derived this framework called the Digital Education Readiness Framework, and we collected data from 10 developing member countries, analyzed under an ADB study. We working together with Economic Impact Group to develop the Digital Education Readiness Framework. This framework was based on evaluating across 5 pillars with a total of 55 indicators that are critical in the digital education transformation agenda. The digital readiness span the countries that we, across the 10 countries, it really includes the infrastructure pillar, the policy government pillar, the school teachers pillar, students parents pillar, and the EdTech providers pillar. So altogether 5 pillars, 19 sub-pillars, and 55 indicators. So the data, as highlighted during the pandemic, which is very, I think, consistent. There's a significant gap in the infrastructure pillar across pretty much all DMCs, developing member countries, followed by a lack of coherent government policy, as well as the providers pillar. For instance, in this chart shows very low digital infrastructure in Bangladesh, and a very limited provider landscape in Fiji and Pakistan, and very weak policy and capacity in Mongolia. So when we say that, the situation of DMCs is we're using the 19th century classrooms with the 20th century teachers, but really teaching 21st century students. And our schools are really becoming the barrier for digital age learning for our 21st century children. And again, this radar chart demonstrates the difference between the gaps in digital education readiness of Bangladesh and Mongolia. Bangladesh exhibits relatively weak infrastructure, where Mongolia features a quite weak governance capacity. So identifying these gaps is important to prioritize decisions on the investment for the next phase. The most optimal development strategy is actually balanced and systematic development across all pillars, across all the 5 pillars, to advance across stages. Heavy investment in one pillar in an effort to leapfrog the stage across one pillar will likely cause very siloed and imbalanced development, resulting in waste of development and waste of money. For example, without the advancement of other pillars, heavy investment, for example, in the infrastructure pillar to have the fastest internet and most expensive devices won't get you the systematic learning outcome improvements across the students and the teachers across all pillars. This is the 4th stage of the digital learning that we are working towards to upgrade our developing member countries. Our countries are mostly in the initial to enabled stage. And what we're really working towards really develop to the next stage to be more, enabled, e-confident, and immature through a holistic roadmap planning and prioritization process. So we're talking about 3S is systematic. If you look at systematic through the vertical pillars across the 5 pillars, that's really meaning a holistic and systematic approach. The second is staged approach, is the horizontal across the 4 stages. And the systematic and staged approach development will really allow the sustainable digital transformation roadmap for any given country. And last but not least, we'll cover ADB's support as how we're going to support the education transformation through investment in our developing member countries. The ADB education sector strategy is again driven by 3 key pillars. The first one is expand operational support and presence for our developing member countries. Second is to provide human capital and socio-economic development through the whole of government and life cycle approach. Last but not least is to promote innovations across developing Asia and transform the education sector. If you look at the current ongoing ADB projects, it's totaling about 5.3 billion, and it's distributed across 5 operational regions and across different education subsectors. Among all the subsectors, Tibet comes top about 30%, and secondary education about 26%, followed by tertiary education and primary education. If we look at among all the regions, the investment for South Asia Department takes more than 46% of the portfolio, with big countries like India and Bangladesh driving the investment and the support. So if you look to the future pipeline, in the next 3 years, we'll be contributing another 4.8 billion US dollars on top of the again the lending really Tibet and the secondary school education projects is leading. And if you look at the tertiary education, it's starting to taking a big percentage of investment portfolio as more countries are looking at higher education or tertiary education to be the economic driver and the innovation for future jobs growth. And again, the South Asia Department is leading the investment, followed by Southeast Asia and Central Asia is also expanding. Lastly, we'll cover one example project, the Southeast Asia EdTech pilot project in 4 countries, includes Cambodia, Indonesia, Philippines, and Vietnam. This includes the digital readiness assessment, a planned EdTech pilot interventions in each country, and the evaluation of pilot interventions to support the scale up of the local capacity. So the 4 countries, Cambodia, we're targeting the learning with digital resources and offline access. Indonesia focus on support and development of existing digital initiatives for teachers, continuous professional development. And for Philippines, it's working with the training agency responsible for TESTA, for hybrid and offline instances of digital enabled skills training. Vietnam, we're going to be focused on development of communicative approach and enhancements to speaking and listening skills through student access to language learning app through the mobile devices. you see across the board, the 4 countries very much focus on the initial to developing stage of the development, and which is really prevalent in our developing country context. And that's all I wanted to cover in today's presentation. And hopefully, working together with the partners like Icarus, we can continue to enhance our capacity and our support to developing member countries in their digital transformation agenda. Thank you. I'll stop here. Have a great day.